Hello, wonderful listeners. This is Holland Hubert calling in from Atlanta, Georgia. It is the start of a new school year, and I am officially a senior at Spelman College, and I'm so excited for this year. Even with a new busy schedule and so much more to do, the podcast will not stop. With that being said, I want to welcome you to the Patriots Nesby Junior Chapter podcast. Let's keep it moving on the podcast. Sponsored by Comcast, SA Tech, and the Richard Eaton Foundation. Today, we are joined by Dr. Loyce Pailen. She is the Senior Director of the Center for Security Studies at the University of Maryland Global Campus. In her role, she oversees the university's activities related to the designation as a National Center of Academic Excellence in Cyber Defense Education. Additionally, Dr. Pailen serves as the principal investigator for multiple grants from the NSA and Gen Cyber, and is a member of the NSA NCAE Redesignation Review Committee. However, it doesn't stop there. Recently, she was appointed to the Governor's Cyber Maryland Board. She is also on the executive board for the ISC Squared NCR chapter, the 2022 National Visiting Committee for NSF, ATE, the National Cyber Watch Center, the Board of Overseers for the Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award, and several other educational and cybersecurity advisory boards. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Holland. It's great to be here. I'm so excited about you and your podcast and all the activities of the Patriots.
Thank you so much. Now, I do know that I did give a brief introduction of you, but I was wondering, is there anything more you would like to share? And if not, what initially sparked your interest into cybersecurity and information technology?
Well, my background in technology goes way back. I started in technology at the Washington Post Company many years ago. And I started out as a programmer, as a systems analyst, as a project manager, and built a pretty strong, solid foundation in information technology. So that I have to say that because it really is the foundation of what I do now as far as cybersecurity is concerned. It's having that understanding of how systems work, how networks work, really gives me an understanding of how important cybersecurity is. Back then, we didn't care about cybersecurity too much. We weren't calling it that, but it was happening, and I think it has evolved over the years. So just having a solid foundation in IT has really supported my career in cybersecurity.
For me, I have no experience in cybersecurity. I am completely science and medicine, so it is great to be able to hear from another perspective.
Great.
So with your vast experience in cybersecurity, how have you seen the field evolve? And what are the most significant changes you've observed over the years?
Well, a lot of things have changed. And as I mentioned, things were very different before when I was in IT, before we were thinking about cybersecurity as we do today. In the early days, we were, it was kind of reactive instead of having a proactive stance. We would react if there was an incident in our organizations and we had to focus on fixing it. But now I think the field has kind of really shifted towards being more proactive and have defense strategies. And the security professionals that we have now use threat intelligence. They use AI, which is a big predictor for mitigating threats. So a lot has changed in the way that we react to cybersecurity situations. Of course, we also know that the early attacks were very simple. We just had I shouldn't say just, but we had viruses and worms and denial of service attacks and things like that. But now the modern attacks have really become far, far more sophisticated. Mm-hmm. They are highly organized cyber criminal groups. There are nation state actors, not just the local person in their garage trying to hack into something. And there are other things that are happening that are much, much more sophisticated than they were before. Some other things, I think from a business standpoint, a lot of businesses didn't take cybersecurity seriously enough. They had it, it's something that IT has to worry about. let the responsible for securing the networks and the systems fall on ID departments, and the rest of the organization really didn't have a lot of participation or involvement. But now we all know that cybersecurity is a key part of every business strategy. And we also know that cybersecurity is a key part of our everyday life. Everyone has cell phones. Everyone is doing things digitally online. We now know that it's much broader, a much broader problem than it used to be.
Wow.
Just a couple of other things. Data privacy. I personally didn't have that much of my information online years ago. Now a lot of it's online, so we have to really be much more concerned about data processing, and it's just a whole host of things with us being more concerned about the human element of cybersecurity rather than it just being a technology situation. So I could go on and on about some of the things that how it has evolved from being just a small area of focus, and where we were focused on protecting isolated computer systems. Now it's global. Now it's everyone that's involved. It's everybody who partakes in the digital world, which I think is everybody. And we have to be more proactive in our defenses.
Wow, and that's really interesting. I never thought about it that way. I'm not a big tech person, so I'm on my phone just casually scrolling, but I see that it has a lot more to cybersecurity than what I thought initially.
Mm-hmm.
So you hold leadership roles in several initiatives and organizations, including UMGC's National Center of Academic Excellence. How do you balance these responsibilities and ensure the success of each project?
Well, it's not easy, I have to say. I do have several responsibilities within the university, but in my role as the point of contact for our Cyber Center for Academic Excellence designation, it requires me to have a lot of external relationships and external projects to work on. It's not easy to balance. My department, the Center for Cybersecurity Studies, is all of one person. That's me. But my background in managerial and leadership experience has given me the opportunity to be able to work with people well. I feel like you have to have good people around you, people who are competent. The folks on my teams often are not being paid extra for what they do, but they volunteer to support some of the grants and the projects that I have. So I could not do it without a vast group of people who are dedicated to helping me, and then also dedicated to cybersecurity and making a difference for our world as far as cybersecurity is concerned.
Yes, I completely agree, especially about the teamwork. I think it's very important, especially in just spaces in general. So I know that cybersecurity is a constantly changing field. What advice would you give to students or professionals looking to keep pace with the latest advancements and trends?
Well, I have to say, and I've had this, you have to have a commitment to lifelong learning. I've always had a commitment to learning as much as I can forever. And I think that is something that you have to have a desire to do in order to be in the cybersecurity field. It's very fast paced and it's always evolving. And you just have to really stay current, staying updated. Cybersecurity is not a field where you can afford to kind of rest on past history. Technology and threats and defensive strategies, they change so frequently. So you have to have continuous learning. That's essential that you have to do that. You have to make it a habit to regularly read cybersecurity blogs and reports. And you might want to subscribe to newsletters. One of the things I like to do, and there's quite a few free ones, attending webinars. I get tons of emails daily that are offering webinars, lunchtime webinars or evening webinars. And it's very easy to stay abreast of what's going on by attending some of those. And one other thing I want to add is that relevant certifications are very important. You mentioned that I'm on the ISC Squared National Capital Region Board. We are a group of people who have ISC Squared certifications. I also have the Certified Information Systems Security Professional, CISSP certification, which I think is very important to think about, doing a boot camp, finding some free training, and making an effort to get a specialized cybersecurity certification.
Wow.
And of course, just one other thing, practical experience. I think some of our students complain about the difficulty of getting jobs because they come out of school, but they don't have the hands-on experience. But practical experience can be done in your home. A lot of students have come back to us and say, hey, I got this job because even though I didn't have that hands-on experience in a business, I set up my home network. I protect my own network at home. I have implemented secure practices on my home network, and that was valuable to an employer to hear that. So those practical experiences and capture the flag competitions, all of those things are very important for you to think about getting into the field and staying current.
Okay, that actually answered a question that I had myself, was how are you finding these jobs? Because I have heard of other students talking about how hard it was for them to find cybersecurity jobs after college. And so that was great advice that you just gave, finding those resources that are already out there, those free resources too, that students can find.
Yeah, there are lots of free ones.
Wow. And so out of curiosity, how did you end up with the job that you currently have in cybersecurity? What measures did you take yourself?
That's an interesting question because throughout my career, I didn't start out trying to be an IT professional. I wanted to be an accountant, I think. And somehow I was in a position at a job where they were looking for people who were interested in learning how to program or do some technology activities. And I kind of just raised my hand. So it was kind of not planned that way. But over the years, I've maintained this interest in information technology. And as I said, over the years, even though there were cybersecurity things going on when I first entered the field, cybersecurity became more important. People were starting to talk about it more. We got a name for it. And so over the years, I started switching from teaching IT topics to thinking about cybersecurity. And then I got really into the university and was very instrumental in helping them get the CAE designation, which really gave me a very good foothold into cybersecurity. I also was the project manager for the development of the college's cybersecurity master's program. So that, once again, gave me a lot of experience in developing curriculum, teaching cybersecurity. And with all of those experiences, I started to become much more involved in some of these external organizations that I participate in now. And that, getting the networking, meeting other people really did enhance my cybersecurity career.
Wow, that's very, very impressive, I will say.
Thank you.
So kind of segueing a little bit, your contributions to cybersecurity education include writing children's books are very impressive. What inspired you to focus on cybersecurity awareness for younger audiences?
Well, one of the things I've talked a lot already about my technology background, but as I continued to traverse the cybersecurity landscape, I saw that cybersecurity is not only a technical issue. We all know that there are opportunities in the healthcare field, in the financial field, in the legal field for people who have some knowledge about cybersecurity. So I started expanding my scope of belief of where cybersecurity belonged, and just happened to have a neighbor one day show me her children's books that she had written. It was not about technology, but a light bulb went on in me, knowing that not only is it interdisciplinary, we really do have to start children understanding cybersecurity at a young age. Most of the children these days have cell phones or iPads or something like that. They are digitally connected, and they need to understand the dangers that are out there, and they need to understand how to protect themselves. It's not easy to describe that to a child. So I thought, that would be a nice challenge to think about how to write something that a child can understand so that they can really start taking care of their digital footprint and also to be able to think about careers in cybersecurity. So careers is another big area. One of the episodes that I have talks about how careers are available in the cyber arena that are not only, the IT tech or the network security engineer. There are other fields that really require some cybersecurity background and education.
Wow, that's really amazing. Definitely seen the younger audience get into cybersecurity. I feel like even me, I probably need to read that book because I really do not know much about cybersecurity.
I
So,
think it is a good overview, and I've actually used them at assisted living homes too, because elderly people are often targeted for cybersecurity attacks. And I have used the books to do presentations to give them a general overview of how to protect themselves.
wow, yep. I will definitely be getting that book because I need to learn. So, as we wrap up, I was wondering, what do you see as the future of cybersecurity, and what role do you believe educational institutions and organizations like UMGC will play in shaping that future?
Well, it kind of goes back to what I was saying about what's going on, how things have changed in the cybersecurity world. These evolving threats, the landscape of the threats that are out there, it's growing, and it's increasingly interconnected, and the sophistication and the frequency of cyber attacks are continuing to grow. There are emerging technologies. Of course, we hear a lot about artificial intelligence. There's quantum computing. The Internet of Things has been around for a world without connected homes and things like that. 5G networks for our phones. They just expand that attack surface where we have a lot more vulnerabilities. So we need to make sure that our students are learning about these things. I think it's really important that we stay abreast of the emerging technologies that I mentioned, making sure that we have programs and certifications available for students to learn about these things. We have to make it easier for them to understand what's going on in the cybersecurity world. And as the new technologies are introduced, what are some of the new cybersecurity threats that come along with that?
Thank you so much for that. And thank you so much for joining me today as well.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Of
I could
course.
talk forever for this. I wish we had more time.
And I could listen forever. And to all of our listeners out there, I hope you all enjoyed that interview. I want to thank every one of you for jumping on the Let's Keep It Moving on the podcast. I would also, again, like to thank our sponsors, Comcast, SA Tech, and the Richard Eaton Foundation for sponsoring this podcast. If you would like to hear this podcast or share it with your friends, please go to Patriots Nesby Jr. website, www.patriots-ttc.org. And please send us an email at podcast@patriots-ttc.org and let us know what you think about our show. Until the next show, let's keep it moving on the Patriots Nesby Jr. podcast. This is Holland
and Dr. Pailen
signing off.